For our first panel, we have a topic, expanding the space sector, leadership and opportunity. We have some fantastic leaders from around the space industry who are joining us here today. So I guess if you could all come up, I'll let you introduce yourselves. Please come up. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing? We're happy to be here celebrating New York Space Week. Okay, work. We have some incredible women on stage here right now. Many of them I've known for quite some time, and I'm deeply inspired by each of their efforts to make the world of space more engaging and accessible. So we're going to be talking about different kinds of leadership opportunities, workforce development opportunities, and such that are taking place in the space sector. And we have the perfect lineup of people to help us do just that. So we're going to kickstart things off with some introductions and hear about how each of these incredible women got into the space sector. So Khaki, let's kick things off with you.
Righty. Thank you very much, Kim. Good morning, New York. Khaki Rodway with Dawn Aerospace. My trajectory in this space industry was long and windy. Let's say it came out of geoscience and architectural conservation. That's how I got into space. I got in because I knew how to write proposals, which, yeah, it's hard to do. I mean, give anybody credit who's done that. I currently work for Dawn Aerospace. We are building a rocket-powered suborbital vehicle. I'll talk about that. We're also building in-space propulsion. And let's see, I've been in this industry for, oh God, almost 20 years, if not 20 years at this point. So yeah, wide breadth. Ask me any questions. I can probably answer them for you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthi, and I'm the founder of a nonprofit organization called Ignited Thinkers to spread space education to all students. I'm also a student at Columbia University studying biomedical engineering on the pre-medical track, aspiring to be an aerospace physician. And my journey into space is probably something many of you in this room can connect with. Growing up, loved watching, different space movies. I loved the various Mars movies that I've watched. I've loved looking up into this night sky, looking at the different moon phases, the stars, and I was always fascinated with space. But I never really saw myself in a space career because I didn't know what there was apart from being an aerospace engineer, and I didn't really have family in aerospace, so that's not really something I was looking into. But in middle school, I had a tech ed class where we had an engineering and design program. And we specifically had a model rocketry unit that sparked my love for space. And I ended up joining our after-school rocketry club program after that class and fell in love with everything space. I ended up doing a summer program, like a fully funded summer program at NASA that summer before 8th grade, and just knew this is what I wanted to be a part of growing up. And so entering high school, I followed my passion for space, but realized I didn't really like the aerospace engineering part as much as I loved the biology and the chemistry. And so I was like, why don't I just bring those two together? And so I discovered my love for aerospace medicine, and now I'm in college pursuing that same dream and also continuing Ignited Thinkers, which started off in 8th grade, actually, when I realized how I was very fortunate to have a rocketry club in my middle school. I don't think that's something that's very common across the U.S. or across the globe. And I wanted to bring this same middle school experience I was so fortunate to have with other students around the world. And so for the past few years, I've been working on that, and I'm excited to be here and to talk more about that.
Hi, I'm Liz Kennick. I'm the president of Teachers in Space. I grew up in Baltimore, and NASA was very accessible. The Smithsonian Air and Space Museum was very accessible. Space was something that people did and considered, but I didn't. I got a degree in systems engineering and went to work at Black & Decker. So I have a love of technology. I got recruited in 1995 to come work at Morgan Stanley in New York, and eventually I became a vice president of client technology. The year that I was a new vice president, those of us in that class were pulled in and said, okay, it's time for you to choose a charity to support. And I thought, I wonder what anybody's doing in space. I found the Space Frontier Foundation. I got involved with them, and they had just built a collaborative agreement with NASA and Embry-Riddle to start a program called Teachers in Space, and they asked me to take it over. So I was the project manager on that for a few years. When we finished that first grant, we spun it off. It's now 501c3 incorporated in New York, and we have trained some 500 teachers and keep supporting them while they keep working with new students every year. I've got posters out front where you can see the kinds of things we teach the teachers and their students to build and fly to space, both suborbitally and orbitally. We've done CubeSats. Lauren Sanchez took one of our 2U classroom payloads up with her in the space under the seat on the Blue Origin launch on the 14th, and we got that back already and can compare the data from that to when we flew it 2 years earlier with no people on board. So that's a really interesting data set. And we have a team of teachers going on 0G next week. And after that, the program that we run every year that starts in New Mexico, and then we support the teachers through the year, we're going to be running it in Gloversville, New York in August, and it's available. Registration is open. New York educators, it's free this year. Anybody from out of state, it's $1,600. And that includes the 4 days of hands-on training, glider flights, balloon mission, and a year of support and a balloon launch at the end of that year. And then other things are available. So if you are into education or know anybody is, I hope that you'll look TIS.org and ask us all questions about what we're doing with STEM education. You've got one of those. All right.
Hi, I'm Ashley Zielinski, and I am an artist, which is a weird thing to be in this room. My journey to space started, I guess, with my interest in science in general. I've always kind of brought in scientific elements into my artwork and used that as my muse to create my conceptual art pieces. I did a residency at New Inc., which is the New Museum's tech incubator. And one of my advisors there was on the board of the SETI Artist in Residence program. So I quickly shifted gears and went out to Hat Creek Radio Observatory, where I hung out with a bunch of scientists and engineers in a telescope field. And I was like, I think this might be what I'm going to do. And took a trip to NASA Ames, went to NASA Kennedy, saw a rocket launch while I was there. They were like, have you heard of this cool new telescope we're building? The Webb telescope, you should totally go see it at Goddard. So I applied to go see it at Goddard, and that's where I met a bunch of really, really cool people and fell in love with the telescope. And I've been working with the Webb telescope team for like 9 years now. Yeah, and just making really cool artwork and reaching out to the public. And, you know, artwork is an interesting way to talk about science and reaches like a completely different genre of people. And you secretly teach people about the telescope and the science against their will because they're like experiencing this cool art piece. And then, you know, I just did a virtual reality piece for the Whitney Museum's art port. The headset is actually outside, so if you want to check that out, it's right near the posters. Yeah, but now it was really cool to have that opening at the Whitney and have people experience the artwork, and then it's all these posh art people walking out of the Whitney Museum, all of a sudden knowing how gravitational lensing works, and I was like, ha, I tricked you all. So that's my journey into space, and it's been really fun, and thank you for having me.
Now we're live. Okay. Hello. My name is Kat Troche, a lot like Ashley. It feels weird being here. I am an amateur astronomer by trade and an informal educator. I got my start about 15 years ago by stumbling into a star party in Central Park. And I had never seen telescopes in New York City. I didn't even know you could see stars in New York City at that point. And it felt a little bit like an oxymoron, but I hung out with the astronomers that night and I've been in love with it ever since. So I am now the former vice president of the Amateur Astronomers Association here in New York City. So if you ever wanted to attend one of our events, they are year round. There's about 4 events a week. We set up telescopes and let people just come and get a look at the night sky and give them kind of bite-sized lessons about space. And it's a lot like tricking people into learning, because we grab you off the street corner while you're waiting for a bus or while you're waiting for the train. It's like, hey, you want to look at the moon real quick? And let's talk about, the lunar cycle and how the moon formed. In my professional career, I am an informal educator with the Astronomical Society of the Pacific. I work remotely, so I am still in New York, but they are based out of San Francisco, California, and we work a lot in the informal space. So with libraries and museums, but we work with Girl Scout troops, we work with the blind and low vision community, and we work a lot with teachers. Our main goal is to get everyone interested in astronomy by any means necessary. So if you head outside, on one of the tables, there is a tactile book that you can play with. I also have additional tactiles with me that teach you about the night sky from a low vision perspective. So it's something interesting and new that you can play with.
As you can see, the breadth of expertise on this stage is phenomenal. I personally, my journey into space, I actually fell into the space sector in a very unconventional way. I wrote a script about 2 women competing for a free trip to space back in college, and long story short, I was inspired to figure out a way to make sure that script could actually happen in real life. And I worked towards launching different kinds of initiatives to democratize and diversify the space sector, and hopefully help create a pipeline to make sure that more women come up and thrive in a sector like these women here on stage. So to kick things off, I would love to chat with you, Gitika, first about, Khaki. About how, as someone who's been in the industry for, as you mentioned, 20 years, how have you seen workforce development initiatives evolve over the years? And what do you feel like has been working? What do you feel like might be missing?
Wow, very good question, Kim, as usual. Actually, I have one question. I need to take a poll here. How many in this room are actively involved in the space industry? And that is wide-ranging. Okay, all right, good. That leaves me a lot of leeway. And I know not most of you, I know many of you. Yeah, so it's really gotten competitive, I would say. It's gotten very exact. I mean, my position has been, like I said, I started off by writing proposals. There was a company out in Mojave, California, that was looking for a proposal writer, needed to be in Mojave 1 day a week, which was great because I could live in Santa Monica, drive out to Mojave, go back to Santa Monica. There's laughing over there. And started writing these proposals and winning these contracts. And I had been program manager of a $5 million National Science Foundation program. And I went to the engineer and said, we need to think about the next step, right? We need to think about this phase 2 award. And he said, so you want to be the program manager? I said, well, sure, yeah, I can do that. So for me, it was basically taking the experiences and my skill set that I had in geoscience, in architectural conservation, and applying that to the space company. Now what you see is people needing a higher level experience. So for business development, for example, a lot of companies, especially very well-established companies, will want you to have an MBA. And I'm not saying don't go out and get an MBA just for this, but know those skill sets. Because business development, not a fancy term for sales, it actually applies to development of the entire company and the company's life cycle. Because if you are working with a startup, there's a lot of room, there's a lot of leeway. So there's a lot of knowledge that you need to go in with. Now, one example I will give is a discussion that I had with someone who, I can name his name, but someone who had started off in banking, and then went to Google as the tech entrepreneur, and came to me for advice of how to get into space. And I said, look, you know space, you've been around, you've been talking to people, as Kim has done, you've been experiencing it. Just get your resume out there because there are skills that these companies will want. And that is going to be the key. Now he's CEO of the company that he went to work for. So it's a matter of application, really, and applying your knowledge and applying your skills.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, Gitika, as someone who is newer to the space sector, I mean, but you've been involved for quite some time. I think you've been around doing things, since you're like 14? I've known Gitika for quite some time, and I've seen her through many evolutions of her own efforts to increase engagement in space, especially for young people. And I'm deeply curious to know, as someone who's kind of more closer to those who are getting ready to engage and to enter the workforce, what do you feel like students and such are you finding the most interesting about engaging in the space sector? What do you feel like different kinds of initiatives, such as like fellowships, internships, what do you feel like is working best right now?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I definitely think the space industry has and is doing a relatively good job compared to previous years in terms of increasing opportunities for young individuals. I know right now there's a huge expansion of the space workforce, and so they're trying to cater to that, get more young students involved into the aerospace economy, which is wonderful to see. I personally think there are a lot of really good fellowships out there, like the Brooke Owens Fellowships. NASA has a variety of internships. Actually, what made me discover aerospace medicine was a high school NASA internship at NASA Ames Research Center. And without that, I would have been on a completely different path. So I do think there are internships at different companies, even in college. I know so many of my friends do internships at various space companies, Blue Origin, SpaceX, and end up going into their companies. So I definitely think that there is opportunity. One of the things, kind of similar to what you were mentioning earlier, even for the young students, I do a lot of international as well as local outreach. And a common theme that I notice is every time I talk about the interdisciplinary skills you need in space, so many students are like, wait, so even if I'm not an aerospace engineer or I'm not a physicist, I can go into this industry, like I have an opportunity, there are job positions available. And I'm like, yes, there are. And they're always kind of like, wait, where do I go? What do I do? And I think we need to do a better job stepping out of our space little bubble and going into schools, going into universities, having recruitment events, and really emphasizing, not just through these fellowships, but through actual outreach with companies going into schools and saying, hey, here are these jobs and skills that we're looking for. And it's not just the conventional engineers. We need all of these other, space artists, space journalists, we need a lot of other people in our company. So I think just emphasizing that would be really important. As I mentioned with Ignited Thinkers, we've done some international outreach as well in Africa, in Kenya most recently, and the Kenya has a space agency, and apparently when we had this event, over 60-70% of the people in attendance didn't know their country had a space agency, and they have jobs available, but they just don't know about it. And I think we've done a good job, but as an industry, I think we can do a better job of coming out of our bubble and spreading into schools, going into schools, doing some more active outreach to share what opportunities are available in space and how we need everyone.
No, I really resonate that, especially considering the makeup of a New York space community. We're not out here really building the rockets in New York City, but we do have a significant number of space professionals who dabble in all different aspects of the space sector. And I mean, I think there's some faces here who I haven't seen in years because we haven't had the chance to gather in this kind of way, in a formal way, to really discuss the ways in which the New York space economy is growing and the opportunities that are here, because so many people are so focused on those other technical roles when they think about the space sector. But everyone here who's a member of the industry is making a truly vital impact to its growth. And Elizabeth, you're taking things from a different angle. Gitika's kind of working more directly with our wonderful students, and you're more focused on our educators. And I can imagine it might sometimes be hard to convince educators to care about space, to integrate that into their curriculum and such, but you've done a phenomenal job at creating space enthusiasts across the country when it comes to engaging teachers. So can you tell us more about what that's looked like for you, getting teachers to care about the growing workforce in the space sector?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. When I started in 2010, 2011, we were very NASA focused, right? That's initially how we were funded, and NASA has a well-established educational outreach program. And so we would run our workshops in NASA locations, typically in California and Florida. And the teachers that we would get were kind of career professional development people, right? They would go take the new workshops and build it into what they were doing. When we finished that NASA grant and began to work with various new sponsors, it was a struggle at first trying to find people, and sometimes we would reach out and find that teachers thought it was a scam, that there can't really be a thing called Teachers in Space, right? And we would get questions like, of course, didn't that teacher die, was a common response. And another response was, well, where's the space station? Is it on the moon? Have you been to space yet? It was amazing how much people generally didn't know about what was happening in the new commercial space industry. And then when the space shuttle program ended, what we often heard was, well, NASA's dead, NASA's over. People didn't understand all the other things that NASA does or what the new commercial space industry was about. Now, that's really changed, and I think that a lot of the credit goes to SpaceX and to Blue Origin, and also to NASA for working with them. So now if you go to the Space Educators Conference in Houston in February, it's not just sponsored by NASA, it's sponsored by Blue Origin as well, and they're there together talking about the things that they're doing together. We're starting to see the new space companies working with each other, Blue Origin and Firefly working together on moon missions. It's such an exciting time. We are no longer the experts. We can't keep up on everything everybody's doing. I try to read my LinkedIn several times a day just to see all the stuff that they're posting. So it's now the time that teachers are coming to us, and we are rapidly filling up our programs. We keep opening a program every year in New Mexico, and in 2023, 22, we had 15 teachers. Last year, we ran the workshop twice. We had 60 teachers, 30 of them from New Mexico and the other 30 from across the country. This year, we decided to split it. So we're doing one in New Mexico, which immediately filled up, and the second one is going to be in upstate New York, and that's filling rapidly. So at this point, what we're finding is that teachers have been looking for the technology and engineering content of STEM. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of funding, a lot of focus on STEM, but the research is still on science and math, right? It's not standardized yet how we teach technology and engineering. And so one of the things we've done is to take the next generation science standards, which have been adopted in about 26 states, and the states that haven't adopted it are doing something really similar. So Texas does not use the next generation science standards. They use Texas standards, but it's so similar that we can point out to them, take a look, we have it on our website, how you can address the various standards at the different levels of education using CubeSats. And sure enough, it works. So what we're finding now, schools starting to hire specific STEM teachers at the middle school level to write the school curriculum for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So one teacher touching hundreds of students every year. And these are often new teachers, right? They're coming in out of university with a master's in STEM education. So maybe we get 20 years out of them teaching. So it's really an exciting time. And the teachers are going on, not always staying in the classroom. Sometimes they're joining other nonprofits. We are going on a zero-G flight next week, which is going to be the first one that zero-G has run that's entirely educators. Usually they do the passenger flights, which are 15 parabolas, or the research flights, which are typically university teams, and those do 30 parabolas. We've been going on those. The one next week is all teams of teachers on a 30 parabola flight, and 2 of the other organizations involved are headed by teachers who came through our program. One of our California science teachers is active at Goddard Institute for Space Study. Matt Pierce is now a leader of that institution. So we're seeing that the teachers who are interested in space are coming and getting it and then going on and sharing it with others. So it's a really exciting time.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Ashley, as someone who kind of has a more, I would say the most unexpected, job for a space panel, what do you feel like the space industry could be doing better when it comes to engaging folks who have more creative backgrounds? Where do you feel like we're failing when it comes to reach out to folks? Because we do have, like, I always believe that the space sector has a bit of a storytelling issue. I think many people would agree. And it would seem like it would behoove us to have more folks who have your background in the industry.
Yeah, I'm not fully going to blame you guys. It would have been cool to have like somebody reach out and be like, oh yeah, your skills are needed here in this industry. But I also blame the art world a little bit too. My artwork is weird for the art world, and so I feel like it's just kind of now being accepted as having merit. So yeah, I'm not blaming you guys, but I mean, it would have been cool to have more of like, outreach in the classroom or whatever, but that's what you guys are doing so well now, so you got it covered. But yeah, I went to public school and they basically told me, okay, you're really good at science, you're really good at art, choose. And I did not like that answer. And yeah, then I went to art school because I got into a really good art school. And the whole time I was there, I was making artwork that plugged in or bleeped or blooped or had a computer attached to it. And none of my teachers knew what I was doing, and they were really confused. And it wasn't until I moved to New York that I met other people that were doing similar work and realized that there was actually quite a long history of people doing this work. Now space, after I got into all my technology related art and I was making like, computer science artwork and artwork about math and artwork about, I've done genetics and all kinds of like, going from computer code to human code to, whatever. Yeah, then I had another hurdle when I started implementing and like integrating space into my artwork because people were like, okay, now yet again, she's going down a weird path that nobody goes down. But yeah, I hope I'm trying to be very outspoken about my artwork and how I make it and how I got to this point because I'm hoping that helps other people, jump on board the crazy space art bandwagon. And I brag about you guys all the time. And I'm like, the space industry is very welcoming. Like nobody has ever turned me away. Nobody has ever said to me, you don't belong here, what you're doing doesn't matter, or we're not interested, or this is for us. And nobody gate kept the space industry to me. And actually quite the opposite. I was like, embraced with open arms. So as far as being cool people that aren't scary, like that helped. Because it can be very intimidating being, classically trained artist walking into a room full of astrophysicists is not, you feel stupid, but that's to be expected. But that's the thing is like nobody made me feel stupid. Nobody made me feel like I couldn't do it, like I couldn't understand it. And I've sat with many scientists and engineers and had them very patiently tell me about their research. And then I would come back to them and be like, okay, here's the art project that I think I want to make about it. Is this accurate? Is this representative of the data? And they'd be like, okay, yeah, but like maybe change this or do that. And we would go back and forth over and over and over again and iterating over and over and over again until we got to a point where we were both happy with how, the artwork would catch people and the concept behind the artwork and the references that I was making and then also representing the data because that's something that I'm teaching you guys about making artwork is it can't be as literal as you want it to be. So when I'm working with a scientist or an engineer, everybody wants to make it like a literal, like a poster or like, oh, the artwork, it has to be like this because that's more accurate. And I'm like, well, we have artistic license here, guys, and we have to make it, interesting. So we're gonna, show it this way or that way and having them, like teaching them about like art history and abstraction and conceptual art and like getting our point across in an artistic manner and not in a literal scientific manner. But having it bring everybody to the same conclusion anyway, so it doesn't really matter is like my lesson now to the space community. So it's been really fun working with you guys. So thank you so much for always being open to working with an artist.
And thank you for your work to make space less intimidating. As someone who I studied philosophy in college, and I think many people who come from disciplines that aren't traditional for the space sector can feel a little bit elite and elusive. But what I love about the work that you're doing is that astronomy is something that people do with their families. Like parents will go watch the stars with their kids. It's something that feels truly accessible, and I think it's an excellent gateway into getting people excited about the space sector. So how can you speak a bit towards how your work in the Astronomy Association can help and is helping to support different kinds of ways to get more folks excited about working and being a part of the space sector?
Sure. So one of the projects that I worked on, not just in New York, but nationwide, was the Eclipse Ambassadors Program. And so we took about 1,000 people. We took 500 undergrad students, 500 eclipse enthusiasts, because it was originally amateur astronomers. But we decided that was too narrow. We wanted to broaden that spectrum. And to get these 500 and 500 grouped together, put them in partnerships, teach them about how to do outreach and how to connect with their communities, because we feel that the best people that are going to teach people about the space industry or astronomy in general is you want people in your community that know you, that know how to talk to you. And so we took these folks, we gave them everything that they needed in terms of training, tools, materials. We sent them out into the world, and they went out and they did all kinds of outreach, from everything from urban to rural. So we had people that would go to the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum and set up a booth and talk about the upcoming eclipse last year. We had people that would go to agricultural exhibits and talk about the upcoming eclipse, all with the hopes of getting people engaged and getting them involved and getting them excited about space and just about this one cool thing that we're not going to get again until 2045. So we ultimately ended up with over 200,000 participants nationwide on and off the path. And that snowballed into this new momentum of, how do I stay engaged in this? I want to learn more about this. Where can I find, your website, or where can I find more materials that I can then, keep doing this maybe at night, and we can do stargazing instead. And thankfully, there's a whole website that we have dedicated to that, where you can just pull a bunch of resources, and it's as simple as maybe taking a trip to Home Depot and grabbing some materials to do a demonstration on how light works. So what we try to do is, we try to make things as easy and accessible as possible, so that this way informal educators can then go into their communities and keep sharing this science, with the hopes that, of that 100% of people that you share it with, maybe 1 or 2% want to pursue this in one degree or another. Maybe they want to become astronomers. Maybe they say, I really like to tinker. Maybe I want to get into engineering, and there's no one right way to do it. Like, I can take as many paths as I want to get to where I want to go. So that's one of the things that I enjoy doing the most, is just connecting informal educators to their communities and getting them excited about space.
And thank you for helping bring in so many new actors into the space sector. I actually want to open up this next question to everyone. I think you guys have all touched on it a little bit, how you guys have benefited from initiatives and programs that have supported your career, and also how you've been a part of some new programs and such to help foster in new engagement. But I would love to hear from your perspective, what programs, initiatives, or just styles of offerings do you feel like have worked the best in the past for bringing in new actors? What do you think is presently working well, and what do you think could and should be launched to help, again, bring in new actors to the space sector?
I have several that I'm excited about. One of them is the coming of the new commercial space stations, and the other is the expansion of spaceports across the world. And I think these two things go hand in hand and are a lot closer than many of us realize. So I'm involved with the Global Spaceport Alliance, and 3 of the committees I'm on. One is workforce development, one is academic liaison, and one is policy and outreach. Is anybody here working at all in policy and outreach in the space? Yeah, that is a fascinating area. And I love getting to know those of you who are working on it, because it's mind-opening to me to come up from the hardware and think about, how do we make this work for the world? So anybody who's building access to space stations, what we're going to use them for, and what this means for the world, I think those are the people we should be supporting and working with.
I think gatherings like this. So I was one of the founders of New Space NYC, which some of you may know. And it was, a lot of it was based like really like a social hour. So every Friday evening, we'd get together, actually would host some speakers, and people would come. The first big event that we did was an investors roundtable. And there are space investors here in New York City. We got, I don't know, 5, 6 of these investors on this panel. Could be wrong, 4 to 6. We expected about a dozen people to show up. 80 people were in that room. And that was really eye-opening to us, that, oh my gosh, you know, not everybody here is in the space industry, but everybody here is very interested in space, and they're very interested in space investing, and they're very interested in what the panel and what everyone else in the room had to say. So kudos to you guys, Evan and Patrick, and you know, the NASA space event. Forget what it's called. That's a space grant. So just keep things like this going, and that really helps to, I mean, you know, not only for us to engage, like, I mean, for example, you know, last time I saw Steve Wolf was in Orlando. Why do we have to go to Orlando? We're in New York, you know? I mean, this is what we're all about. So I know it's hard. Everybody's got their, you know, we're in our bubbles, right? Everybody's got their day to day. But if we kind of keep doing things like this, one example is the Washington Business Roundtable, the Space Business Roundtable that happens once a month. It doesn't have to happen often, but it has to happen. So forums like this, where we can all talk to each other and learn from each other, and, you know, find out what we're doing so that we can all move forward, is really advantageous.
Yeah, from a student perspective or a young professional perspective, I would say one of the key things for me, and I know so many other students, has been LinkedIn and cold emailing and cold messages. And every time I have an opportunity to talk to a group full of accomplished people, I always say, you might receive so many messages on LinkedIn, but one reply of like, hey, I'd love to, you know, jump on a 5-minute Zoom call, or hey, here, send me more information to this email, could make a world of a difference. Because when I started Ignited Thinkers, it was just an idea. Like, I didn't know how to start a nonprofit organization. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know what aerospace medicine really entailed. I just knew this was something that called to me. And I, again, didn't have parents in this industry or in medicine. So really, I was navigating everything like for the first time. And that was really difficult. But I think the people who I met on LinkedIn have become some of my closest mentors. Kim, I met you on LinkedIn like a few years ago, and we've now been able to do so much together. Every collaborator we've made through Ignited Thinkers, working with so many space agencies, organizations globally, it's been through LinkedIn. And when I say that, people are like, are you serious? And I'm like, yes. So I think as a student, it's helped me both in my career, but also growing Ignited Thinkers into a reality. And for me, as like a 14-year-old, having access to a world of people who I could just connect with and then just send a message to was so cool. Like talking to astronauts, talking to people who've done cool things. So I always request, like, if you do receive a connection on LinkedIn, try connecting back with them. I don't think there's a harm. And if they do reach out, like, jump on that Zoom call, even if it's on your Saturday evening. I think sometimes it can be worthwhile and you can make a really cool connection. And some of my closest mentors I met when I was in 10th grade still do Zoom calls with me. And so they've been pivotal in my life. And so I think, as Ashley was mentioning, space has been one of the most welcoming industries, and I think we should continue to do that because I wouldn't be here without LinkedIn or other people who've supported me. So definitely, I think continuing to use social media to our advantage.
I can speak to NASA socials being excellent. Where's the NASA people? They're great. Keep doing them. How I got to see the Webb telescope for the first time in the clean room was through a NASA social. It was an open call looking for artists, which was a weird event. And it was run by Maggie Massetti, who's an amazing friend now. And I don't think she's gotten enough credit for, taking the initiative to like not only do NASA socials, but she's like curating them with themes, like and bringing artists in and bringing in, specifically like different groups of people and not just like random people or people in the space industry or people that are already interested in science, but like actively going and seeking out weirdos. And so that that was really cool. And I've done a couple other NASA socials since then, and I think it's just a really great way to get people in to actually see the equipment. And if you can travel and if you can go to a NASA facility, it's an amazing experience. And I think that, everybody there that I met who was a participant in this was so excited to be there, and took that experience home and then, spread it throughout their communities. And so I think, keeping up with the NASA socials and also maybe like, curating them to be specifically for industries or groups of people that aren't in science and not generally interested in the space industry would be great. Yeah.
This is probably just a broad, idea. But one of the things that I would hope going forward is to stop keeping things behind a paywall, whether it's an article or if it's access to equipment. I understand that these things are costly, but if there's a way to minimize or just completely eliminate cost for people to maybe get time on a SLU telescope or to be able to access an article or a paper, those types of resources make all the difference, especially to people that don't come from that background or maybe just do not have the funds to access education. So if there's anything that I would say, my biggest thing would be as a takeaway would be to just make sure that we are making things as accessible as possible, in many different ways, whether it's through, print media, video, what have you. Anything helps, really.
I love all of these ideas. I love your kooky approach too, how you mentioned your desire to integrate creative different ways to engage folks. I once ran like a space economy camp for science fiction writers, and that was one of my favorite ways to engage folks. We did it in partnership with ASU. We brought out like 20-something science fiction writers of different levels of expertise from around the world together, and they got to spend a few days with like an astronaut, the chief economist of NASA, other really remarkable economists, and we had a really rich and robust dialogue about what the future of the space economy could look like. And it was so beautiful to just see their eyes open up as they were infused with this real world knowledge, and to see the brilliant creative ideas that I haven't heard of, and in all of the different rooms that I've spent time in, whether that be with policymakers or economists in the space sector. They were so brilliant and creative, and to see the interaction between the economist and the science fiction writer specifically I wish I could have recorded that. But I do think it really is so important for us to come up with new, creative, engaging ways to bring in these new actors, and it's really great to hear all the ideas that you each have shared. I'll also say, as someone who's been in the industry for a minute, I rarely do get to see all women panels. And I think it's really great that Evan and Patrick let this be the first panel for the day, because although this is an all women's panel, we haven't spoken about that yet. We've just simply been sharing the truly impactful ways that we're all trying to expand access to the space sector. But I think that is, still a reality that we have to acknowledge at times because it's a part of the reason why we haven't seen numbers shift in the right way. And so I'm curious to know, and again, I'll open this up to everyone, as women who have been making strides in the space sector, what do you feel like the industry could be doing better right now to ensure that not only do we bring people in, but really that we retain talent? Because I think that's one of the biggest issues that I've seen is people leaving the industry for a variety of reasons that do have some connection, unfortunately, to their gender.
I can take a stab at it first. I will say I've been in the space industry the least in this panel, so maybe you might have better experiences or better of a reality to talk about the shift. I'll say from my experience, I've been, again, really lucky. I think my generation has come to a more welcoming space industry, at least from my perspective and my experience. I think panels like this, experiences like this, fellowships like the Brooke Owens Fellowship have done a phenomenal job of helping women feel welcome. I know there's like the Women in Aerospace organization that hosts incredible events. And so as a student, right now, I do feel welcome in the industry. But yes, of course, sometimes I do go to some conferences where I'm one of like two girls in a room or one of like the only students in a room. So age sometimes could be another barrier, but I do think overall we've done a better job heading in the right direction. One of the things I've noticed though that a lot of college students end up dropping space is because they feel it's just too hard to enter and it's easier to shift into taking their engineering background and applying it elsewhere. I don't know if that points to a specific barrier in terms of gender, but I think it could be stemming from other issues in space, like in terms of like advertising about the different job opportunities and how the industry is growing. I think a lot of my peers, the reason they choose to pivot away from space is because there are not enough jobs. At least that's their perception of the industry right now. And so they're like, oh, it's easier to take my CS background and go somewhere else as opposed to trying to fit into NASA or fit into a space corporation with my skills. So I think they're just I don't think it's necessarily a gender issue, but it might be something else. So I'll say from my experience, I have been very lucky to be surrounded by incredible women mentors. And so I know maybe other people have had different experiences, but I think we're doing a good job. I think as an industry, we just need to continue supporting initiatives like the Brooke Owens Fellowship that are doing a wonderful job supporting young women and continue just raising awareness about space and how we've started to rapidly increase the number of jobs available. I think there was a statistic actually you mentioned or someone else, how Blue Origin still is like underhired, like they still need more engineers. And that's just one of many companies. And I think we need to continue to just show how many opportunities are available to increase young students to want to enter the space industry and realize there is a space for them.
I've seen a lot of things in a lot of time coming up through technology. I could go on, but I think where we are today is in a really good spot. I'm noticing difference. I'm looking at this audience, and there's a great deal of gender diversity, at least, in this audience. It used to be if I went to a space conference, I would be one of very few women, probably less than 10, maybe 5%, right? And the women that I met would typically be writers. And so it was expected that I was a writer too. And I found myself constantly having to overcome, and you feel it, right? You feel, oh, these people don't think that I understand technology. I don't feel that way anymore. And I think that what's going on in the space industry is similar to what I was seeing when I moved to finance, which is if what you are doing depends on your ability to do it, you will quickly be recognized for whether or not you have that ability and appreciated for it. So I think right now, my modern message to people is let's all try to work on it together, right? Try to connect, if you're a woman, with other women. If you're a man, try to connect with a woman like she's just a human, right? And women can try to do the same. And I think it's amazing what we find. You have mentioned how welcoming we are to each other. And I think that's really what's making the difference.
Yes, so I think listening to Gitika, it's about confidence, really. It's about, again, putting yourself out there and realizing I can do this, and just the barrier a lot of times is in our mind. Even though, yeah, we may see it, we may be in a room. I mean, I think the first conference I went to, it's about over 100 people, and I was one of 2 women in that room. And, you look around and you observe, but after the fact, you're like, nothing I can do about it. So let's just move on and do what I need to do. Yeah, you don't have to act like a boy, but at the same time, you just have to be cognizant of yourself and that you are literally in that room and in that position. So get out there. Just a real quick stuff. First space company I worked for, Aerospace. I was, I think, the 17th hire. There was 1 woman, and she was a founder. And in my interview, it was awesome. She sits back. It's just her and me, and she goes, "Well, there's a bunch of men here, and they don't always say the right words. They can, say bad words." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "I've been on a drill ship with roughnecks for 2 months at a time. I think I can handle these engineers." So that is just, again, in your mind, just tell these women who you go to school with to just push on. And
I can speak a little bit about, I just want to reiterate, yeah, like getting your girls together and going out and doing something together and just keeping a good group of women that you trust around you is kind of how I started my Lady Tech Guild, which is a group of women who were like 400 members now. And we do quarterly meetings where we, exchange information, give talks, exchange opportunities. It's kind of what the guys do is they like give each other job offers and like sneak each other in the back door. And that's what we do for each other. But it started out being just a small group of women, like my closest girlfriends, that we were tired of being the only woman in the room. And so we started going to events together instead. So, oh yeah, I was invited to this and I want to go to this talk or this presentation, but I know I'm going to be the only woman in the room. And so the 8 of us would all go together. And then you're less intimidated and there's a big group of you and people want to know, who are all the girls? And so you talk to more people and you're less intimidated because you have your support network literally with you. And so we just started opening this up more and more and more women were joining. And we were like, oh, there's obviously a great need for this. And so we did like little spin-off groups and we had like, people go, oh, this is like bioengineering. So now we have like a little bioengineering like spin-off and like, oh, we have like computer science spin-off. And then, I do space stuff now and we'll take women to space things. But yeah, it's just like grab even just one other woman and force her to come with you to your thing. Like it can be as simple as that.
See, I lucked out. So I started my professional career only about 2 years ago. And so my immediate boss and my CEO of the company that I work for now are women. And so they've been excellent mentors. So I was already kind of coming into that space where I'm like, wow, this is great. Like, this is fantastic. Now on the amateur astronomy side, wasn't always the case. It was always, oh, you like stars? That's cute. And so it's, even to this day, and I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. I'll go outside with my telescope and, occasionally I'll either go out with another astronomer or I'll come out with my spouse. And he'll just, he'll hang out on a park bench. But then if we're talking, someone will come up to him and say, oh, what are you looking in the telescope? He's like, I don't know, man, ask her. And it still persists a little bit. But I will say that coming into this industry recently has been great. And I hope that it continues in that trajectory because it's been fantastic. So please don't change. Get better.
Oh, thank you guys so much for sharing. So I'm gonna have us just run through the exciting projects that we're all currently working on. If you have some announcements you want to make, so think about that for a second. But also, I'm going to open things up and we'll take a couple of questions. So if you guys have some questions, get to thinking. But I'll kickstart things off with my current project. Right now, I'm helping produce a conference that's happening here in the city in June. It's called the Earth Observation Summit, and it's taking place June 10th and 11th. We have some really phenomenal companies, including significant end users of Earth observation data who'll be coming out for that. So it'll be a really fun time and another great time for folks who are local to the New York area to come and gather and talk about space.
Cool. I want to go. I want to be involved. So what am I working on? So on our side of the business, I handle what we call the space plane business development, and that entails, well, Dawn Aerospace is broken up into 3 entities. So we have an office in Delft in the Netherlands, which is where we started, and in Christchurch, New Zealand. And I am the US entity. So I am Dawn Aerospace USA LLC. We recently sold a plane to, this time undisclosed, US state. Unfortunately, not New York. But what this means is, and we just closed the deal April 2nd. We got to set up in that space. So they're going to build the plane in New Zealand. They're going to certify it, test fly it, put it up to the full envelope. And by the way, this is a horizontal takeoff, horizontal landing plane. So it's not vertical launch. All it needs is a runway and air traffic control. And that's how we operate this plane. It's remotely piloted. The pilot is down in mission control. It's not very big. It's about 15, maybe as big as this stage, in fact, about 15 feet. So we're going to do that. We're going to build it, New Zealand, qualify it, and then bring it over here to the US. What I'm working on is setting up in this state, not New York, this undisclosed state, and which means hiring people, building that workforce. We have about 8 to 10 people, building the end users. So basically building that market of the users for this vehicle. And that includes microgravity, technology development, Earth observation, many things that we, in fact, don't even know right now, because the playing field is very open in terms of what you can do with suborbital science and a suborbital vehicle. So research education, there's also national security defense applications. So lining up those customers, lining up the people who are going to use it at that state, and yeah, just building out our US entity here. So that's probably the big thing I'm working on right now.
Yeah, so for Ignited Thinkers, as I mentioned, we're a nonprofit to spread space education to all students. We're focused on 2 main things right now. One is local outreach as well as global outreach. For local outreach, we recently received a grant from the Washington Space Business Roundtable to host space camps in schools near the Washington, D.C. area or the greater D.C. area. And so we recently went to a Title I school in Fairfax County, but hopefully we'll go to other schools as well, where we hosted like an assembly of 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, and they all built model rockets and launched them at the back of their school. So it was a great moment to have more students do that. I kind of felt like my middle school tech ed teacher, which was a great moment. And we hope to continue those space camp workshops and hopefully bring it to other states, to New York as well. In terms of global outreach, another thing that we started a few years ago is where we're working with global partners, global space agencies, and local STEM nonprofits in the country to spread awareness about the space jobs and space opportunities available for them. I mentioned we recently went to Kenya, and they recently opened their space agency in 2017. So it was wonderful to work with them to raise awareness about the agency, as well as inspire over 400 students there in the University of Nairobi to pursue careers in space in Kenya and Africa overall. And now this May, we're actually going to be going to Macedonia. We're working with Martina, who's the first analog astronaut in North Macedonia, and we're working with her to host and outreach a global space education summit there to raise awareness about how they can, from their country, take advantage of the opportunities that are available to enter the space ecosystem, how they can explore opportunities both in Europe and abroad to really advance their career. And we hope to continue our education summits, but that's what we're working on right now.
So I talked, and when I introduced myself, about some of the things that Teachers in Space is involved in. Primarily, we provide the professional development for teachers in technology and engineering, and we do that through hands-on workshops. We do it through classroom support, and we have online offerings which people can take individually, or they can use it to augment what they've already learned with the hands-on. Then the next thing we have is flight opportunities. We have a balloon program that we run regularly. We fly things with the Perlin stratospheric glider. We fly people with experiments on zero-G, and we have put 2U experiments up on several New Shepard flights. We've also put some 3U orbital CubeSats up with Firefly and one on SpaceX. That is still a difficult premise for most K-12 classrooms, right? It's hard to build and license and test and launch a working CubeSat in a year. And students and teachers move around so much. If you don't get it done in one school year, you're not going to have the same people working on it the next year. So we're starting to look more for university partners and other foundations that we can work with to use their orbital satellites rather than trying to launch more of those ourselves. And the other key thing we're working on is getting the teachers onto the suborbital space flights. We've got some NDA stuff that every time I'm speaking, I'm like, can I talk about that yet? Not quite, but there's a foundation that has some tickets for us. There's a flight provider that has set us some milestones. There are some supporters who are helping us achieve those milestones. And if you want to help us get teachers to space, I think it can happen in New York first. I want it to happen in New York first, and I hope you'll come talk to me.
So I have several upcoming projects and projects that I'm working on. May 22nd, I'm giving a talk virtually at the Whitney Museum about Twin Quasar, which is my virtual reality piece about gravitational lensing, which is in the lobby. If you want to try it in the Apple Vision Pro headset. So you can hit me up on my Instagram or mailing list, and I can send you a link so you can register for that talk. It should be really interesting because it will be art people trying to talk about space. And me correcting them. So that'll be really fun. And if you want to see what that looks like, it's interesting. And then I'm carving marble in Tuscany this summer from using robotic CNC arms. And all of the sculptures are 3D scans of astronaut Mike Massimino's equipment from space. So like his suit and his tools, and we're working together to kind of like tell his story of fixing the Hubble telescope through marble and digital art, which is interesting. Yeah, and then I have a solo exhibition in the fall, so I'm working on sculptures, part 2 of my Webb telescope experience. I did a show here in New York in 2022 that was working with the NASA Webb team and talking about their contributions to the Webb telescope. And this one will be in Europe with the European Space Agency talking about ESA's contributions to the Webb telescope because, you know, NASA doesn't get to have all the fun. The Webb telescope had lots of partners. And so I'm working with each of the different agencies to talk about their contribution to the Webb telescope and get some eyeballs on, you know, just how a project like this can't be accomplished by any one team, any one person, not even any one country, that it truly takes international collaboration to achieve something this big. And just drawing attention to like what we can do as humans when we're doing cool, nice stuff instead of sucky things. So yeah, let's do more cool stuff.
Current work right now. So I am the administrator for NASA's Night Sky Network. And what we do is we host lectures and webinars for astronomy clubs around the US and just for the public. So our upcoming webinar will be on May 15th, and it's going to be about exoplanets and the upcoming NASA Habitable Worlds Observatory that will be hopefully launching in the 2040s. Knock on wood. So that'll be a fun webinar. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern. And locally, a project that I'm working on, and Patrick, you'll be glad to know if he's in the room. So hey. Locally, my astronomy club for the last few years has been trying to build an observatory in New York City, which seems pretty counterintuitive because, again, light pollution, and when you think New York City, you don't think stars. We officially have a home at the Evergreens Cemetery, which is a registered arboretum. It sounds weird putting an observatory in a cemetery, but they do a lot of educational programs. It's a lot like Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. This cemetery is also in Brooklyn. And we will be breaking ground this fall for anyone to come use it. K through 12 students, colleges, just the general public, anyone will be allowed to come and learn at the observatory and the education center that is going to be attached to it.
Wow, we have some amazing things happening here in New York, y'all. All right, so before we wrap up, does anyone have any questions for these amazing panelists? Yes, in the back over there.
On geospatial data analysis, on microgravity. You know, we need to start getting our young people involved in this stuff because they're hiring.
That's true. Does anyone have any thoughts on Space Force and how that ties into like some of our workforce development conversations and things?
Because what I wanted to say actually crossed my mind when we were on the topic of women, that my personal stumbling block when I go to Space Symposium these days and everybody there is taller than I am and wearing a uniform, I feel intimidated. And I have started forcing myself to go get a drink at the happy hour and walk up to a bunch of uniformed people and say, "Hi, I'm from Teachers in Space." And you know what? They want to talk to me, but I haven't actually done any work with them yet. And I'm wondering who has. Yeah.
Yes. So again, I mean, I think it's about preparation. I mean, Space Force is one of the military agencies, right? So it's open. I mean, if somebody wants to enlist in the Space Force, they can do that. So it's not a closed environment. And, you know, again, I think really and let me just go back to kind of the company side of things. The companies are gonna look not so much at what the student's GPA is or, you know, how many extracurricular activities they had, but what they built, what they put their hands on and did. So, you know, organizations like Liz, Teachers in Space, build a CubeSat. And, you know, I mean, with the rate of launches and the accessibility of space, that may be all they can do. They may not see that launch, but they built it. You know, they know what those things, how that process works. So if anything, just have the students put their hands on any space-related adventure. I mean, even if it's looking at, for example, taking raw Earth images and doing that data analysis, just pulling it out of that, colorizing it, and I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not that hard. It's basically a software program that I think NASA has on the website where you can take Landsat images and you could process them. So again, I mean, talk to people here, look around, look at what opportunities exist for the students. Space Force, yeah, I mean, they have uniforms, but they're still people.
All right, another question over here.
First of all, I wanted to thank you for this excellent panel. It's lovely to see so many fabulous ladies. I'm in space marketing. I work on a NASA mission, and I also work with the Star Trek team to kind of make the STEAM instead of STEM. And I was curious what you thought on getting private companies to really buy into space marketing, because I have found that they really are not putting the money there. They're not putting the effort there. It's a lot of R&D and engineers, but you need someone to tell your stories, like Kim was saying. So I'm really curious to see like what you think is the barrier to that in terms of culture and attitude, and also how we can work to change that.
Yeah, I would love to see the private companies work on their marketing pitch a little bit more. I think, in pop culture today, this private space industry, people have their opinions, and they're not always correct. They don't always know what's going on. There's lots of like Katy Perry putting the ass in astronaut and not enough talking about that there's actual science going on there. And what people take away from stuff like this colors their opinion and their support and their interest in the industry. And so, NASA and the government-funded agencies obviously have a ton of red tape and rules around how they present themselves and where their tax dollars go. And, there's lots of protocol on their end, for better or for worse. But the private sector has this amazing opportunity to really inspire a lot of people, and they need to be more thoughtful about how they're doing that. I would love to work with more private sector space companies because of the red tape that goes around with working with NASA all the time. So I'm extremely interested, and this is why part of the reason I'm here today is to meet more of you guys in the private sector, and offer my unique set of skills to maybe help you guys market a little bit better and get the right message out. So yeah, come find me after if you want help.
I don't know if you guys have heard about the Space for All campaign that kind of kickstarted last year. And their first big engagement was like at a NASCAR event. I personally am very skeptical of many of the efforts that private companies have made to try and engage the general public. I think nonprofits have honestly made more successful, true impacts when it comes to engaging them. And it's also because like the objectives of a space, marketing team is to build business and do B2B work. Instead of focusing on reaching out to the everyday public. And so I think if you, as if your personal objective want to see more folks engaging in the world of space, I think partnering with nonprofits is really the way to go.
Yeah, story of my life in the space industry. In short, get the artist involved, because it's about telling that story, and the artist can reach the general public a lot better than the engineers, the scientists, et cetera. But also, in going to those commercial companies, remind them that marketing has a lot to do with the revenue generation. And go to Harvard Business Review. They've got loads of articles about that, and you can cite the statistics about how companies that focus on marketing do 30% better than companies who do not have that focus on marketing, or, you know, that budget that they put in. So, you know, a lot of startups, a lot of our companies in the industry don't realize that, because like you said, they focus on the engineering, but they go hand in hand.
Just want to add to that real quick. Actually, there was a conference here, the Luxembourg in Space Summit, and there was a lady who's a space investor who said the exact same thing. And I thought it was interesting because a lot of space companies are so focused on one vertical because that's what, you know, inspired them to start the company. But there are so many other verticals for where that product or whatever they're working on has a lot of terrestrial applications. And sometimes you need someone who's not in that company working on that product to look at it from an outside perspective and realize that. So I think someone who's coming from marketing or like an artistic background can really pitch themselves and saying, you know, maybe I don't understand fully what's happening, but I do see where all of this could be applied even beyond the space industry. So just kind of like building off what you said, I think marketing is so critical to touching all those verticals and increasing the revenue for the companies. So just wanted to point that out again.
Thank you. I think that it's all the time we have. Are we doing one more? Let's do one more question.
Thank you. Owen Curtin. This question is actually for Khaki. Have you sought or have you been solicited by states in the United States seeking to increase their share of the space business, including from inbound foreign companies? Because I've read and heard myself that there are many states, particularly Western states, that are aggressively trying to give tax credits and other kinds of advantages to non-U.S. companies seeking to implant themselves in those states.
Yes and no. Yes, I mean, on the space, I can speak on the spaceplane side, where yes, there have been states that want us to come, and these are the states either establishing a spaceport or having an underutilized spaceport. So with that, with bringing us in on the spaceplane side, then the thinking is, well, you know, you also now have a home that you can manufacture your in-space propulsion and thereby serve the U.S. market. And because a lot of times, especially on the defense contracts, if it's not made in the U.S., they don't talk to us. Now, they'll talk to the primes who can contract with us, but sometimes it's a lot easier to work directly with your customer. So, yeah, I mean, short answer is yes. Actively and aggressively, I mean, there's conversations, but I think too, a lot of those, the tax incentives that were there, say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, aren't there so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for such brilliant answers today. What a wonderful way to kick off the morning.